I'm your host this evening for this Wednesday night hump. So good to be here on a Wednesday night with all of you. So glad to just be able to take time to talk about guitar gear and other stuff we're going to talk about tonight. I always like to get started by saying that I'm thankful for you spending a little bit of your time with me. Time is a valuable thing, and you spending a little bit of yours with me is greatly appreciated. The value is not lost on me. So thank you guys so much. Hey Scott, how you doing, sir? Welcome to have you here. Let me scroll down here. This is weird. Let me see if I can. Yeah, that's close enough. Let me do that. Making a few adjustments here, guys. I'm trying a split screen tonight. Actually, three screens tonight. It's getting Star Wars here. I'm trying this out. Hey, Mr. Watson, how you doing? Um, yeah, I had hoped, I was hoping, it had been my plan that I could show off that Pocket Master that I ordered. I've got my board here that set up and ready to go. Um, and I have not yet received it. It's here. The order was fulfilled and it's in town somewhere. I assume it may be shipped tomorrow. I hope. So that's a little bit of a bummer because that was going to play into my discussion tonight a little bit, but that's okay. But yeah, there's an empty spot right there for it. If you can see my pedal board, I included the Tone City Little Heat pedal that was so graciously given to me, and I put it in there because it's a little tiny thing. It doesn't take up a lot of space, so there's still room for that and the other pedals that I plan on, analog pedals that I plan on using in conjunction with the Pocket Master. But let me tell you something. If you come across a Tone City Little Heat, it's actually voiced off of Tone City's Sweet Cream, which was kind of modeled after a Vox AC30. Um, I'm interested to hear how this sounds in a Vox AC30 cabinet. Um, it's interesting enough. I didn't try that with the Moore, but interesting. I don't know why I didn't. But anyway, I added it to the board. I got the spot, but just don't have the Pocket Master in the mail yet. So I'm looking forward to that, guys. I understand they come already fully charged, which is interesting. So yeah, it should be good to go out of the box. I can plug and play, so to speak. Hello, everybody out there. Ben Allmark in the house. Maddie Two Hats. Hey, how you doing, Maddie? Hey, how you doing, Ben? Everybody's here. So glad to have all you guys here. Am I missing anybody here? No, no, I'm not. Yeah, man, I've got one, two, three, four screens going here tonight. Mr. Rogers in the house. Welcome to the neighborhood, sir. How you doing? Good to have you here. Are modern Vox amps as good or iconic as vintage ones? No, no, Scott, that's a great question. Um, I don't think so because I've owned, if you guys remember in Singapore, I don't know where that came from. Yeah, actually, knowing that place kind of, sort of. Singapore, I had a Vox AC30. I even built a custom back for it because I hated the one that it came with because it wasn't ventilated. That thing would get hot. And compared to the older AC30s I played, like a late '60s in Japan, you can play that stuff. You can find those. No, it doesn't sound the same at all. So even with modeled ones, I often wonder what are they modeling it off of. If they tell you, well, this is based off a 68 or a 67 or something like that, that's useful. And I think that's great with this Pocket Master because you're able to load NAM files. So if well, it had to be full, it has to have the amp and the cabinet loaded in. But I think that with those NAM files, you really do get the person taking the time to tell you what it is that it's a capture of. and that's very useful. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Maybe somebody out there has an. I'm actually looking for a Mesa Boogie Mark II, a good, clean Boogie Mark II NAM file, to tell you the truth, because as you know, the Mesa Boogie Mark II was the amp that Prince played, and forever and a day. And what a sweet tone that thing had. So I'm actually looking forward to. I've never played one, a Mark II. I'm really looking forward to finding a NAM file of that as well. So a lot of possibilities with that Pocket Master. Didn't come in today, but that's okay. We just roll along with the punches. That should be. I'm good because I roll along with the punches. The new channel motto. So tonight, the last time I talked about gear that is no longer necessary to the modern guitarist or musician or producer, for that matter. Home studio enthusiast. I forget anybody, home hobbyist. So there's that. Hey, how you doing, Lane? And I thought tonight I would talk about the things that actually you do need these days, and not surprisingly at all, you can get away with a lot less. I've said this before, but I thought that it would be a good opportunity to try to drive that point home a little bit here tonight. So a little bit of, and also, again, that was kind of the negative side of the coin. I always also like to present the positive side of the coin as well. So, hey, I'm so glad you sub Lane, and so glad to have you here, a member of this chat. These are some of the nicest, greatest folks you're ever going to meet on YouTube. I've gotten this chat going here. So welcome to the group. You're always welcome to come in, ask questions, share in the chat, and welcome. So, yeah, you can survive without having that third, fuzz pedal, unless it's vintage, and then I guess maybe you could list it as an investment piece, I guess. But really, you can get away with a lot less these days. So there are, of course, always. You're welcome, well, Lane. There's always pieces of gear that we can't let go of. I have a few that I've had for a long, long, long time now, and it's surprising to me that at the end they are the pieces that all the stuff that I've had, all the gear that's gone through, they're the ones that I hold on to because I notice that there's a recognizable sonic value to them. Like, for example, my vintage greenback from 72, or my Klon clone, or even something newer like this level set buffer by Fender, which is an extremely inexpensive pedal. I do believe you can get it for under $100, but it will make a significant difference in your digital recording. So if you're using modelers or things like that, this thing has a switch on it that you hit right here, and it mimics the basically the load that you would get in a real tube amp. And that makes a difference. That makes a sonic difference. Every little thing that, again, like I said, that little bit of salt that you can add to your digital mix analog wise, it will richen your digital sound. It'll just make that 95% go to 100%. You kind of think along the chain, the signal chain, and what you're doing and where you're trying to achieve. And try to do that minimally as possible. Again, you don't want a Death Star sized pedal board going for you. That's a pain in the butt to lug around for gigs. And also, it's not necessary these days. You get away with a lot less. Now, part of the I'm good kind of philosophy that we have here, the channel motto on this channel, comes about by having those key pieces, I'll put it that way, that really make a difference to you as a player. Some that, you can have a lot of guitars, but if you really think about it, there, as I've said before, and as other people have said before, and it's true, there's always that one that you consistently grab, you know. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the most expensive one in your collection. I've heard a lot of stories about guys say, I have Fenders, but for some reason, I always grab my Tokai. I always reach for that one for some reason. And not, it's a cheaper guitar than the Fenders, obviously. But there's just something about that guitar or a guitar in our individual cases that we grab for. Also, you know, one solid guitar can cover 90% of your gigs or sessions. There was a time when a session guitarist had to take several instruments with them, plus a few amps, plus a few pedals. And because they never knew what the producer wanted. So they had to basically bring their entire, guitar, pedal, and amp collection with them and say, hey, what do you want? And that day and age is gone. I don't. Again, I kind of mentioned this before. That it has been said by pro guitarists here on YouTube that that was a fact at that time, and I know that for a fact myself. I was woefully lacking in that department, but I think that that day and age is gone. I don't think that that's necessary, and I really think that digital solutions will get you there a lot faster than analog ones sometimes. Mike, did you see those devices that let you use your analog pedals as MIDI inputs? I guess it's a MIDI converter switch hub thingy. Yeah, man, that's funny that Scott, you're always on time with the right cues. One thing that I did want to mention in while I was waiting for people to show up that I was looking at for equipment, and also when I was doing research for tonight's discussion, was a power block, a real that it's a rack mount, real power mount, and a digital effects unit. And the effects unit that I was looking at had MIDI imports it jacks in and out. And I thought to myself, okay, what application these days would that be useful? And now you've brought up this device to use your analog pedals as MIDI inputs. I find that fascinating because that might be the answer there. So therefore, you could run your pedals through this digital effects unit. It's also rack mountable, and I'm going to get the power conditioner because I've got down here, I've got too many cables. I got too much power cables running. I don't like that. The smart thing to do is just buy a rack mountable power conditioner, sit it up here, plug everything. It's got like 12 inputs in it. It takes all kinds of jacks. It's the bee's knees. Things will run a lot cooler and quieter, more efficiently. So that's the thought behind that. But the MIDI thing with the effects unit, I just was kind of like, what would you do with that? But that sounds to me like that might be a cool way to use that. So, did something happen with the chat? I don't know, Scott. I can still see you. Yeah, it shook my house for about 5 seconds. Yeah, I love those earthquakes. Been living with them all my life. I picked up a used a blue guitar amp, Iridium. I've been on the hunt for a Mercury edition, but haven't had any luck. Yeah, I'm familiar with the Mercury. Are any of you guys ever use either? Really, I haven't used it, but I'm familiar with the Mercury. It's supposed to be the bee's knees. It really, from everything I've read on Reddit, interestingly enough, that's the limit of my. That if you can find one, if you can get one, it's worth looking into. You know, And that kind of leads into my talk about amps and pedals, small, multi-purpose style stuff. And like I said, is I think is more efficient, especially if you couple it. You can couple it with an analog pedal board, and then that kind of throws out the argument that you need to bring all these different amps along with you. Because if you've got very good captures and models of those on your pedal board, and you still are using, oh, okay, what is that? He said, the producer will say, give me a little bit more gain on this, and you don't want to be going into modeler and doing that. Well, the modeler is just set as an output. It's a set amp. It's the same, because I plan to use it just as an amp, you know. Even in some cases, really just as an amp cabinet and the effects. I won't be using the preamps, power amps. But if you have that kind of setup, then it's just merely, I got a Vox, just as a matter of hitting the pedal, scrolling up Vox, Fender, whatever. You can change amps, and if you need to change tones, you still have the tactile analog pedals where you can start screwing with knobs. So I just think that really this innovation for guitarists is fantastic. I think it is that innovation that is starting to really show that, and especially in the right hands, you can get a super good guitar tone. Even link your own individual guitar tone using digital. So there's that. Um, seriously, that stuff is cheap as that Pocket Master is really so efficient that, it's got most people's amps looking for a retirement home. It's just, that's really just the way it is. Um, Cables are still something that you need in 2025. However, there are different qualities to cables. Here are two examples of pedal cables that I have. I have the ultra thin type. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. And then I have the old fashioned clunkers, with gold tips, gold foil tips, so very high quality. But you can see, even innovations. And by the way, the sound quality of these I think, slightly quieter than the old-fashioned ones. And even this you can see an innovation in guitar cabling, from what we used to use to connect pedals together to what we use now. I mean, that's a significant difference. And the sound quality has improved as well. So again, there's been a lot of places where there's been innovations. I think also, not so much with the guitars, but with actually in the pedal market. Interesting, there seems to be a strong focus in that, and I know this has been around for a while too, but when I was growing up, this is what we used. This was it. And weight wise, it's a big difference as well. There's a lot of things like this. And so I thought that really being more efficient is with your cabling might be somewhere that you can look at as well. If you're still using this old-fashioned type of cabling, maybe you might want to switch over to these. These good quality, of course, are not cheap, but neither is this. I think, to be honest with you, these aren't that much more expensive than these. Cabling in general, especially quality cabling, but you can tell when you hold it because it's got weight. It doesn't feel cheap. Even this is gone up in price. There's a lot of inflation in that. I invested in cables a long time ago, quality ones, because I've learned over the years that shitty cables will not help you at all, and quality ones seem to last forever, ever, and ever, and ever. So I got guitars from Japan with cables in them I've got a cable collection of cables, two or three over here. No, actually four over here behind me, cable that were in the guitar cases, and they're from the 70s and 80s, the 70s and the 80s, and they still work. They're really good quality cables. So, yay for me. I add that to my cable collection. But that's somewhere where I think that's something that you still need in 2025. But always invest in the best cables that you can. I cannot stress that enough because it's going to make a big difference. I hate on Reddit when I read about guys complaining about the noisiness of their pedal board, and I look at it and I'm like, well, what the hell are you using to connect those cables? What do what did you think was going to happen with that? So invest in quality cables. We used batteries. Yeah. Yeah. I still use the clunkers. I have so many of them. I hate to buy more. I hear you. Quality clunkers are not bad. I still have quite, as you can imagine, quite a few of these as well. But I have to tell you, the space saving, I can get my pedals in tighter than I can with this, to be frank with you. And the noise is a lot less with these. I run it with these. My pedal board, as I've told you guys, is extremely quiet. It's extremely quiet. I'm really happy to have these. And I bought a lot of these back when they were cheaper. It was one of those things when I was saying, "Hey guys, you might want to buy some things while they're still cheap." Well, this is one of the things that I was practicing what I preached. I bought a bunch of these, and I'm glad I did because they did go up in price. Cables, it seems to have jumped up in price recently. I use Klotz cables. They've lasted for about 15 years. It'll last longer than, it'll last 20, 25 if you keep them nice. Keep them I keep everything stored away very nicely here, as you guys can see. Bit of dust, but it's clean. It's not cluttered. And if you keep your stuff nice, it'll last. Cables, quality cables. I'm just I've been using them for, I can honestly tell you, for 40 years now, coming up on 50. And quality ones are what you want to go with. It used to be football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Australia. Yeah, I'm glad that quake did not turn out to be worse. It took me a long time, I'm embarrassed to say, to figure out the hell with the cheap shit patch cables. Get the good stuff and be done with it. What a nightmare. Yeah, again, they do you no favors. They do you no favor at all from a efficiency standpoint and from an effectiveness standpoint. Just leave them alone. That's one thing you got to bite the bullet, guys, on. It hurts you. It'll hurt you because when you hear how much one of these costs, just one. When you hear, and I bought a few different sizes. When you hear how much one, you'll be like, "What the hell?" But this will last forever. This will last forever, no doubt. Um, Hi, Mike. Cat, how you doing? Cat's Music Journey. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the live stream. Good to have you here as always. Just finished my set. Happy to catch you. How was your set tonight, sir? I hope it went well. I hope it went well. I hope you really grooved tonight and just enjoyed the feeling of playing live. I miss it. I miss it actually quite a bit more than I thought that I did. So I envy you that. Yep. No one's kicking goals with cheap cables. You got that right. I read all Mogami gold cables. Yeah, Jim. Welcome, Jim, by the way. Those, oh, yeah. That's like, oh gosh, and that other company that had just to catch me out, but even back then, I was like, oh my God, those are expensive. Eye-wateringly expensive. You know, there's that. Was good, not the best, but really nice. Thanks for asking. Hey, man, these days, I'll take it. Any live gig would be groovy, man. It's just a blessing. It's good that you're out there doing it. My Epiphone Wild Kit Royale has over 50-foot wire, 50 feet of wire inside of it. Gives it a creamy tone. Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that. That could influence tone. So, cables. Quality over clutter, guys. Quality over clutter. You know. Now I talked about my pedal board and how I plan on really just using. I consider my Nobles pedal, which is from the same run as the ODR run, the preamp, which is based on a Fender, to be my preamp. I haven't found, believe it or not, to my ears, a better sounding Fender, Fender twin sounding pedal. I'm sorry, Fender Blackface in this case. And I have to be honest with you. Um, I don't plan on using any of the preamps again in that Pocket Master because I will be running this into whatever cabinet, be it a Fender or whatever, that sounds good with it. I'll have to toy it around. But this balance of the analog clarity with the digital utility is the next thing that I want to talk about. Because again, as I was saying, um, these days, if you, uh, again, it's always thinking about your signal chain. If you approach it like that, I think that you'll get the best of both worlds. And I think that this is good for the analog pedal makers because they can stay in business. People say, hey, I'm still using my analog, whatever, ODR1 or SD1 or whatever Boss pedal. But my output solution, especially in live situations, as I said, these days, amps are getting more and more frowned upon, but they have been for a while because even I experienced it with my band. Um, it really is the kind of balance that you want to have. And it helps you keep it lean as well because if a part of that digital solution, that functionality of it, is having your effects also built in there, that's going to really just make your pedal board more efficient, your rig more efficient, on down the line. Um, and but again, like I said, keeping the analog pedal makers in the loop is good, I think, overall around. I would not like to see this cause the analog pedal makers like Wampler or JHS or any of those other guys to be driven out of business because I think that there is room for both. There's an ecosystem here, a balance that can be achieved for both of these worlds. And I think there's a benefit there as well. Hey, I may not want to use the tube screamer, capture in the pedal. I've got a real tube screamer. I'd rather just plug that in through an amp simulation and go from there. Thinking along those lines, I think, like I said, is good and keeps the balance, keeps both options out there, keeps both options improving what they're doing in terms of their product, and I think that that's healthy. Will it go that way? We'll see. Mogami or the cognac of cables, I agree. That is top shelf. That's top shelf. Um, 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 my guitarist, Keigo Mizutani, those are the cables that he used. Clots are the Porsche, made by the Germans. Who makes this one? I forget who makes this one. Um, doesn't say, but I paid a pretty penny for that, and now I don't use it. It's a prop now. that's that. Well, maybe there'll be a use for it. We'll see. Yes, they are very expensive, but I figure I'll never have to buy cables again, ever. I agree. There you go. Testimony right there as well. You really want to invest in the most expensive cables that your budget allows because the truth of the matter is it's a one and done kind of thing. It's kind of like golf clubs, unless you're into slamming them against trees, when you don't make par. You really have to look at it like that. So there's that. So a lighter pedal board, you're more likely to use it as well, you know. And I think that you're just really doing yourself a favor. Like I said, I'm moving away from amps altogether, whether they're solid state or tube, because they don't work for my recording environment now anymore. I don't have the big house in Singapore with its own dedicated studio room. So that I don't have to worry about the neighbors downstairs. I have to go this. I have to go digital this route, but I think I still can keep an analog flavor to it. My sound. I know what these pedals do. I know how to dial in my tone. I like that. You still need a capo. I said you don't need a tuner anymore. Again, the Pocket Master has a built-in tuner. You don't necessarily need a tuner anymore. But you certainly need a capo. You certainly need a guitar strap. And you certainly need picks. I've got quite, can I reach some of these? Yeah. Can I get this? Yeah, this is a good example. Oh, here's an even better example. Okay. So, share this with you guys. This, guys, this lovely thing is my guitar strap that I've had since I was 16, 17 or so. I like to say it's starting to really fade out there, but that's okay considering how old it is. And this was my guitar strap. And the reason why is because I saw, of course, Prince with this kind of guitar strap with his Mad Cat. And I said, oh man, that's cool. I like that combination. I got to get myself one of those. So this old thing, it's still holding up. Look at that. I take care of my things. I'm surprised that Singapore, well, Singapore ate up a lot of my leather because of the heat and the humidity. But these were in the studio. The studio room was always temperature controlled. Nothing that I had in the studio really went bad. And then I've got, something like this, which is a cheapo guitar strap that you get with any old cheapo guitar these days. This is actually Diageo branded strap. That somehow or another is in my possession. But I have quite a huge collection of guitar straps. You're never going to get away from that. A quality strap is going to last you a long time. I mean, I literally could have gone through life with just one strap. Well, this one. I think this one and a red one. The red one I used for when I played live, and I use this live. This is a strap I use, and so that's one of the oldest things I have. As a matter of fact, outside of a few other small mementos, that really is one of the oldest things that stuck around, and it was a guitar strap. It somehow hung. Maybe I think I was a little. I think I wasn't in high school. I had just graduated from high school. I think I got that strap when I got the bullet that I've been trying to track down to whether it was a Strat or a Telecaster from the Guitar Center. That was a strap that I chose along with it. Still got the strap. Don't have the guitar. Lowell, every fishing pole I've ever had is at the bottom of the pond. Is at the bottom of the pond on the edge of my property. Well, it's very hard to fish from underwater, so you might want to try to fish those out if you excuse the pun. I still make a little amp, but am very tempted to go amp IR pedal. Yeah. I just think again, as you guys know, I've amped, I've mic'd amps, I've done all that. I've gone direct in accounts, I've done a lot of different kinds of ways, but this one right here is pretty neat. If it works out the way that in my head it should work out, then that would be fantastic. It may even surpass what I have in my head. That would be a pleasure. That's not made of the Cheetos Tiger is in my. Yeah, man, dig that, guys. I had to have it, man. I had to have that. I said I gotta have that because my man Prince had one like it. Of course, I never wore it, wearing just a vest and a speedo like he did, but there's that. I still use the old hippie straps that every music store in the country sold in the 60s and 70s. Yeah, I had that one that had a whole story how it went and came back on me here too. This is, yeah, so an old Ace strap from the 70s. That's the oldest thing strap that I have. That thing is dated from about 69, 1970, somewhere around there. There's a weird story with that one. I won't. It went and came back eventually. A lot of anyway, not getting into that. A lot of nice guitar companies are really bad people. Are really bad people inside of them, working a toll on even trying to receive support, even a sponsorship. Yeah, I got you there, Poppy. I got you. Um, oh no, they were all discarded in anger. Well, that's what I mean. You can't use them underneath, so underneath the water. I suppose you could don a scuba gear and try that, but I think gravity would be working against you, maybe. So there's that, guys. You know, recording a software these days, there is actually I don't know if this is real or not too. There's those YouTube videos where guys saying that they're reverting back to tape. I don't know how real that is. Because even if you go back to tape, at some point at the end result, you're going to have to convert it to digital if you want anybody to hear it. And we discussed the high cost of pressing albums and vinyls and tapes and things like that these days, or even, God bless the CDs. So I don't know how real that is. So the modern reality is DAW plus amp sims. They're practical. It's fast. It's the way to go. Uh, you know, with something a single unit with a DAW and I hate to say it and something like an Iridium all the way down to a Pocket Master. Um, you can achieve a very realistic guitar and bass tones. Yeah. Now, there is a nostalgia wave of tape machines and 24 track hardware making a small comeback. And I am, for one, and trying to go in that route. I'm trying to go with the 24 track hardware route. Sorry, guys, like I'm a little thick mouthed again because a dental surgery I had for some reason in the evening, it swells up a little bit. But so excuse the thick tongue. But, I am of the mindset that that's the direction that I want to go personally. And I will achieve that one of these days. But for right now, I use a DAW Studio One. This one guitar guy tried to make me upload quality work. Am I like for a while you want to try to steal my fart riffs? Nah, man, your riffs are all on your own. Jim says, Straps is where I refuse to spend a lot of money. If it doesn't affect the tone, then I'll go cheap. Yeah, not too cheap. I had to be frank with you. Honestly, I would not use this Jim with an expensive guitar. Yeah, it's nylon, it's that, but I wouldn't go with that. Yeah, I just wouldn't trust this. Uh, Straps, if you're around long enough, which most of us have been, they kind of fall in your lap, and quality ones come through as well. So, like I said, I've got a dozen straps of different qualities from and of different vintages as well. It's not really something that you have to invest in too much. You know, I think that, you know, I hate uploads. If I want to work on a track and then the software says, "Oh, you need to do this upload before you can go forward," that pisses me off because I was ready to sit down at that moment and do some work. I had an idea, and you're asking for a software update. That's my main reasons why I want to get away from DAWs. I'm tired of having companies abuse the system of paying for downloads and then blocking you from achieving recovering those when they change their format, especially to a subscription model. They've basically ripped you off. They've stolen from you. They've stolen from you. There's just no ands, ifs, and buts about that. And I just cannot abide a thief. I can't. There's a YouTube channel I've saw where this guy records and edits digital, but then re-records it onto VHS, then digitalizes that and uploads it. That's not a bad idea because you're adding that tape saturation to the final mix, true tape saturation. So I think that that's brilliant. And VHS tape is a wide enough format where you won't get clipping on your peaks. It's done really right. That's actually not that's such a great idea that I might actually steal that. You have to do buy two converters on the input and on the output, but yeah, that could work. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Oscar, how you doing, bro? Good to see you. JHS released the Tascam pedal. That was a step too far for me. Josh will make everything, I guess. He already has done a battery sim pedal and a few other wacky things. Yeah, well, he likes to experiment, throw it against the wall and see what sticks. I can't, do that. I can't fault him for that. But the Tascam pedal, yeah, yeah. It's kind of goofy. And pop-ups in Logic pisses me off too, Maddie says. UA always have them. I generally delete a plugin if it has any pop-up. Yeah, yeah, I agree with that too. It's like, what the hell? So that's my gripe against digital recording because I don't want to have to go through that crap. That is a pain in the butt, you know. And honestly speaking, so we covered a couple of bases there. We talked about the things that you kind of do need, but a lot of that stuff, some of it like straps, they come around. You don't have to invest so much in, but things that you would think that are simple as connector cables, honestly, this is where you want to think about spending money. Your guitar, I am still of the opinion, like I mentioned in there in the intro, that one guitar will cover 90% of the bases. You're always going to be reaching for that one guitar anyway, so why don't you sit down? If you got a whole bunch of them, it may be time to sit down and, as they say, thin out the herd. Because you can't take them all with you. But the truth of the matter is that you know if you really should scale down because if you're intimate with the equipment that you have, the reason I mention him because he's a great example of a great producer, musician. Everywhere you can use his in a lot of examples is Prince. The reason he stuck with using Boss pedals all his life is because he knew what to expect. He had experience with those since mid, 77 when they came out. He had experience with those pedals using them. He knew what to expect, and he got intimate with them. And because he was intimate with them and he knew them so well, he was able then to take them and have them do things that people never thought of before. Like, for example, hooking them up to his Len drum machine and creating some of those drum sounds. Um, so there's that. There's such good ideas that I'm going to steal that for myself. Yeah, it's a really great idea. A greatest artist. I think that's a great idea. I think that's brilliant because you're adding in real tape saturation there, and the format, like I said, is wide enough where you could come out with a pretty good product as long as your converters going in and out are decent quality. Um, so there's that guy. There's that. I got another fortune cookie for tonight. The funny thing about fortune cookies is what I want to talk about. Start out here tonight to go into the last part of our discussion for tonight's live stream. Um, Sometimes the fortune isn't really predicting your future. Sometimes it's warning you about your past. Another way of saying that is, as Senator Palpatine said of the goodness or badness of the Sith, it really comes down to a certain point of view. Certain point of view. So, what is the fortune? Doors will be opening for you in many areas of your life. Well, that's nice. Like I said, again, it all fortunes and things like that all come across from a certain point of view. Bad Two Head says Prince was good, yeah. But have you heard Vanity? Well, I'll tell you something, man. If you want to, Vanity. I was in love with Vanity since she was in a movie called Tanya's Island, which came out in 1980. Remember when you didn't quite have the cable, you didn't pay for cable, and but if you left it on long enough, sometimes you could see what was going on a little bit. And I was trying to watch that movie when I was like 13, that way. With on Sigourney Weaver's dad's cable thing. I forget what that was called, but yeah, man, dig that. She was something. She was a beauty. She was a beauty. She was actually a true beauty. I always thought she was more beautiful than Apollonia, which, by the way, Apollonia is now suing the Prince estate. She claims she wrote Romantic Monday. I don't think so. A lot of things she's trying to do. It's funny, but whatever. Have you ever asked a guitar company to sponsor you? Sponsor you? No, because one of the things about this channel, Poppy, is that I don't like. I've turned down sponsorships or people who ask me to take a product in and review it. I've turned that down. I've turned it all down because I really want to be honest. And I want people to view what I say to have an honest bent to it. I'm not skewed by money. I'm not making a great deal of money, believe me, on this YouTube channel. The money that I do make, again, goes to help out a kid through college with books and stuff like that. So I will continue to do this for those reasons, but no, I would never take a sponsor for those reasons. I would never do it. Yeah, I think the whole world was crushing on Vanity. Yeah, yeah. She had a very interesting life. So, point of view, guys, certain point of view. Now, interestingly enough, in my feed, a channel called Wavern the Terrible, that's Wyvern, Wavern the Terrible, came up in my feed. And I said, "Oh, this is interesting. Let me take a look and see what this guy." Because stuff comes up in your feed. That's what it's there for. To kind of maybe this is something along the lines of what you're interested in. So I looked at the video, and it was talking about he's talking about along the lines of the things that I've been talking about in my discussion with the weird goings on in Laurel Canyon over the course of this summer. I was walking my dog this morning. We were coming out of Vondel Park because I live around the corner from Vondel Park, and uh, I felt fall in the air for the first time. Aki haru ichiban. So the first winds of fall, they say in Japanese. And I think that I said that I would do this going through the summer, we're going to be wrapping it up here this month. So this will be the last few live streams at the end where I talk about this subject. But when I was flipping through Wavern's The Terrible's channel, and again, he's talking about those aspects that I've been discussing going on in Laurel Canyon, and the counterpart things that were occurring over in the UK, the tie-ins that I've talked about between those artists and acts, the monkeys being in the Beatles videos, and the Beatles coming over Laurel Canyon, and if you're interested in that kind of topic and you like to continue to hear more about that, because after this month, like I said, I won't be going on into that book anymore. Maybe something else down the line, but that's the end of that discussion. And again, like I said, summertime in Japan, they tell ghost stories to cool you off, give you ghost bumps. I thought scary music business stories would be appropriate to talk about. But funny enough, I was flipping through the comments on one of his videos, and somebody commented, "Hey, Mike McWilliams is talking about the same stuff on his channel," and I I was like, "Holy crap!" You know, to see my name in the comments of his channel, I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" I had no idea that Laurel Canyon discussion that I've been having had that kind of reach. There's people that are popping in that you never know of. That's the first thing that taught me. The second thing is right below that, somebody wrote, "Yeah, he's one of them." Saying that of me, I'm one of them. Speaking of I'm in the club. Um, so if you're interested in these kind of discussions and you want to continue with this, I highly suggest you go over and check out his channel. Matty Two Hat says, I watch that dude sometimes. Social engineering YouTuber, Wavering the Terrible. Yeah, that's him. Boomer Black Sheep is another one. Yeah. So I was surprised to see me mentioned in that. So since I know now that there are people from that world, the esoteric world, who, yeah, thanks, Scott. Check him out. He's worth checking out. I listened to enough of his videos where I fully can say that he has a very solid understanding of the subject that he's talking on. And he has a point of view that lines up with things that are in my home file, things that I'm aware of is what I call it. If I read something down the line, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I file that away in something mentally I call my home file. That's interesting. And a lot of my Humfao things line up with a lot of things that he was talking about. There are some differences in opinion, uh, though one of the cool things that he points out is that Billy Shears, which is the nom de plume for the fake Paul McCartney, um, correlates to William Shakespeare. I never thought of that one. When I saw that one, I said, okay, I like this guy because that was something after all this time. Um, that's not reference you, Mike. There's another guy, Mike McWilliams. He's a Beatles. Oh, okay. Whew. I was about to say because I had a minor heart attack there, but I do want to address that anyway. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Um, that that Billy Shears, William Shakespeare uh, connection is brilliant. Now, the origins of William Shakespeare and the numerous volumes of writings that are attributed to him, we have a different view upon where that comes from. He believes it's anyway. That's not important, but again, it shows you that in this realm, two things. First thing is that you have to learn how to think three-dimensionally because both things may seem like his theory on the origins of William Shakespeare and my theory on them. They are true enough because time-wise, chronologically, they both line up the individuals that we think, but there's enough there for both of them to actually be true. So it's not a one dimensional, it's not a two, it's a three dimensional. There's overlaying of facts and things. But that's the first thing that if you're looking at this kind of stuff that you should be aware of that two things though diametrically opposed could be true at the same time. And that way of thinking, that three-dimensional thinking, or as you guys know, I call it looking at the earth from 30, looking down from 30,000 feet. Like when I used to fly into Cambodia and I used to see the Mekong River, and depending upon the time of year, it looked different, but I had that perspective. When I was down on the ground, my perspective was different. So that's the first thing. Um, there's a lumberjack, Mike McWilliams, out there too. I hate to tell you guys, I do moonlight as a lumberjack. I've been down a few rabbit holes myself. Yeah, Maddie. And that's the second thing that I want to talk about in wrapping up this series about this kind of thing. What apparently the other Mike McWilliams and with Vernon the Terrible are talking about and looking at what they're saying, it's absolutely correct. Again, there can be some points, sticking points where we differ, but they are essentially correct. And it should tell you volumes about the world that you live in. It should certainly be an introduction into some people to achieve a higher worldview. Now, with Wavern and the Terrible and other guys like that, they get too caught up in the bramble bushes of Tavistock or Freemasons or all of these organizations. And believe me, all those organizations do exist. The Royal Society, of course, in the case of Shakespeare, all that stuff does exist, but you can really see the forest for the trees if you just look at things through a lens of the world is through a monotheistic lens and a polytheistic lens. Now I'm gonna leave it at that. Because that's what I really think that about all of this stuff. You really well, Mike, you've been sharing this, you've been reading this stuff, we've been talking about this stuff. What do you really think? Tonight is what I thought I would cover after getting into all this stuff. I think, and I personally view the world through a monotheistic or a polytheistic viewpoint. And I will add that choosing neither is also a choice. So I leave it up to you to look into what I mean by that and then see if you can apply that in a way to discussions, like I said, about the shenanigans, the machinations that were occurring, the social engineering that was occurring in the 1960s. Um, and Wavering the Terrible points out that the punk movement, you know, CBGBs and all that stuff, none of that was organic either. He clearly points that out, that a lot of the top, punk people were actually no different than a Jim Morrison character, for example. They were actors playing a role because their true selves and what they were representing on stage were diametrically opposed. And in that system, when you get into the black and white, the checker pattern, the kind of thing, that they can do that. That's okay. That's allowed. As a matter of fact, that's par for the course. So he ties that together very lovely. Um, and if you're interested in that kind of esoteric thing, I suggest you go over and take a look at him. My channel is about gear and things, the music business, gear and things like that. We cover all things music related. The dark side, the Sith, of this story certainly is something worth exploring, and I'm glad I did. But I'm very cautious because those rabbit holes, I don't want to be the one to lead you down and you go into a bad place. There's a certain responsibility that comes with that. So, what I will ask you to do is, if you want to understand my viewpoint of things, understand monotheism and polytheism, and then ask yourself, what side of the coin do you fall on? Sage Aquay is his channel. All the Paul's Dead conspiracy stuff. Yeah, that Paul is dead stuff is I got it. I got it. And honestly speaking, I don't think that it's not real because those cats between Lennon and McCartney, they're throwing up too many, signs. I know signs, hand signs and symbols. I know I'm very familiar with that. And the minute I see it, it stands out, like a sore thumb. And that's why I was hoping they would say, when they said Mike McWilliams, he's one of them. I'm like, whoa, 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 no, I'm not one of those. I'm not that. I don't know. I'm not part of that. It's a big club, and I'm glad to not be in it because, again, looking at it from a monotheist and a polytheistic viewpoint, it does not appeal to me. So they're throwing signs, all right, yeah. And so you can't excuse that. If but you have to be educated and know what you're looking at. Once you look at it, once you see it, as they say, once it's seen, it cannot be unseen. And then it's up to you as an individual to decide whether or not you want to try to figure out what really is being said there. And the same thing with the Laurel Canyon scene, wrapping this up tonight, is that, you know, I've showed you that there was gangsters, there was groupies, there was a cultist, there was um, military intelligence, um, and there was an occasional musician that actually stumbled into that, real musician that stumbled into that. Mass murderers with Manson, weird, occultic churches like the Church of the Process, Process Church, stuff like that. There's a lot of weird stuff that was going on up there. And that cannot be excused as, maybe, well, that's just a coinky dink. No, there's no such thing as a coinky dink. And again, as I've stated before, there are other channels that show you that there was even weirder stuff going on over in the UK. Soft power, I believe, is the way that Wayne Terrible puts it. And that's good in a turn. Again, like I said, that's on this level. Looking at it from a monotheistic, polytheistic viewpoint is up on this level, and you can see it a lot better. I never understood the worship of Paul McCartney myself. Maybe I'm too young to get it because there was a push behind him by all the media and a lot of things. There was a lot of stuff going on there that, that it worked on some people and some people it didn't. A lot of weird stuff I want no part of. It's a wild world out there, kids. Yeah, and you don't want any part of it. You don't want to entertain it. You don't want to introduce yourself to it. And you basically want to stay away from it. But you should be able to recognize it. You should be, you be innocent as a sheep, but as clever as a wolf. That's possible. So you want to try to, at least, it's like getting, a vaccination. You get a mild case of the strain, a mild strain in you, so that you build up immunity to it. Yeah, immunization shot. That's what I meant to say. And so that's okay. Mike, have you ever seen the YouTube channel You Can't Unhear This? It's about oddities in the Beatles recordings. Yeah, man, it was all over the place with those guys. Okay? In ways that, I'll be frank with you. I'm not a huge Beatles fan anyway, so it's not coming in and out of my ear. The only song that I like is Dear Prudence. And that's the one that you put that on and I'll sit down and I'll listen to it. But it's all sinister. Yeah. Educate yourself and stay in the light. So you just have to look at this stuff this way, guys. It's the reality though of the music business, and I don't want to sell you I don't want to sell you on trying to get into it and say it's all gumdrops and lollipops, because it's not. It's not at all. There's levels to it and layers to it, and the deeper you go, the more murkier it gets. So that's just the truth of it. So there's that, guys. Delve into this kind of stuff. I guess at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say, at your own risk. but keep in mind that you don't want to to play in that muck too much. You know. So there's that, guys. So I thought I would address that tonight. What do I really, really, truly, really, really think about this stuff? I think it's all true. I think it's all real. Um, uh, because it makes sense on a lot of different levels. But on a basic primary level, it was about social engineering and directing society in a certain direction. Um, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, I guess, if you guys know that song. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. You guys know that one? Yeah. What does that really mean? All right, guys. Please take care of yourselves. Please be good. Always be good. As Maddie said, try to stay in the light. And hopefully that Pocket Master will come in. What I'll do is I'll shoot a video of showing off the pedal board, how it works with it. I can't think of an angle because there's 50,000 Pocket Master videos out there, but maybe I can think of an angle that's a little different to do it that way. Um, I've never been any crazy zodiac people. Yeah, yeah. The age of Aquarius is the dawning of the new age. And what is the new age? Well, look on the back of your dollar bill where it says Nova, New World Order, Novus Ordo Secula, Secular. Anyway, A secular world new order. Anyway, it all ties in, cats. But like I said, don't get into too much of that because it'll drive you crazy. What you should be doing is just keeping your head down and then keep moving on, keeping in the light. All right, guys. A good evening to you. You take care until the next one. I'll see you. Bye bye.